What drives an immortal being to risk everything for someone destined to die? Throughout history, sacred texts reveal something shocking. Gods couldn't resist falling for humans. These weren't innocent attractions, they were cosmic rebellions that changed entire civilizations. From Greek mountains to Hindu temples, from biblical scrolls to ancient Vedas, the same forbidden pattern emerges. What these divine love stories expose about human nature will challenge everything you believe about spirituality and power. What Hindu avatars teach us about divine love that Christianity hides? Let's start where most people don't expect, with Krishna, one of the most beloved deities in Hinduism. This isn't just another god story. Krishna represents something radical, divinity choosing to experience full human existence, including romantic love. But here's what makes this different from every Western narrative you've heard. Krishna didn't just visit Earth, he lived completely as a human while remaining fully divine. He herded cattle, played music, engaged in playful romance with the gopis, the cowherd women. His relationship with Radha stands as one of the most sacred love stories in Hindu tradition. But here's the twist nobody talks about. Radha was married to someone else. By human standards, this love was absolutely forbidden. Yet in Hindu philosophy, this relationship transcends conventional morality. It symbolizes the soul's passionate longing for union with the divine absolute. Every gopi who danced with Krishna felt he was dancing solely with her. This reveals how the divine relates to each human soul individually and completely. Krishna multiplied himself so every soul could experience total divine love simultaneously. This concept destroys Western notions of divine love. In Christianity, God's love is often portrayed as paternal, distant, requiring intermediaries. But Krishna's love is intimate, personal, transformative. It's not about judgment or salvation through suffering, it's about recognition and awakening through blissful connection. The Bhagavad Gita shows us something even more profound. When Krishna reveals his universal form to Arjuna on the battlefield, the warrior experiences simultaneous terror and ecstasy. Witnessing divinity face to face isn't comforting, it's overwhelming. It shatters every illusion about reality. This is what happens when human consciousness directly touches divine consciousness. Hinduism offers what other traditions hint at, but rarely state explicitly. Humans and gods exist on a continuum. Through reincarnation and spiritual evolution, mortal can eventually achieve divine status. The barrier between human and God isn't absolute, it's permeable, illusionary, crossable. So when a deity loves a human, in Hindu tradition, it's not transgression or salvation, it's recognition. The divine sees in the human their latent divinity. Love becomes the catalyst for awakening that truth. You're not being saved from outside, you're being reminded of what you've always been. Now think about your own spiritual journey. Have you been taught to see divinity as distant and unreachable? Or have you felt that spark inside yourself? These ancient stories aren't fantasies, they're maps showing you the way home. Why Zeus violated cosmic law repeatedly, and what it reveals about desire. Now, we travel to ancient Greece, where divine love takes a completely different form: raw, controlled, consequence-heavy. Zeus, supreme ruler of Olympus, descended from his throne countless times to pursue mortal women. Europa, Leda, Dana, Alcmene, ordinary women who became part of divine narratives because a god couldn't control his desire. But here's what scholars rarely emphasize. Zeus wasn't just driven by lust. These stories speak to something the immortal gods lacked: genuine passion. The Olympian gods were eternal, but they lived in cosmic boredom. Humans, with their brief and intense lives, possessed something the divine envied: authentic emotional experience. Every time Zeus fell for a mortal, his wife Hera unleashed devastating punishment not on Zeus, but on the humans involved. Women were transformed into animals, hunted, cursed. The demigod children born from these unions faced unimaginable trials. Hercules, Perseus, heroes born from forbidden love between divine and mortal. They never asked to exist, yet they carried the weight of cosmic transgression. This dynamic reveals profound truths about forbidden love. It always demands payment. When sacred and profane mix, entire worlds shake. And we're not just talking about ancient myths. Look at your own experience. How many times have you witnessed people risk everything for love? Abandon security, break social rules, defy entire families? The Greek gods weren't so different from us. They felt, desired, suffered. The difference? When a god suffered, the universe trembled. When Zeus wept, storms devastated entire regions. When he loved, new constellations appeared in the sky. Here's the uncomfortable truth these myths expose. Desire doesn't respect boundaries. Not human boundaries. Not even divine ones. Zeus could have chosen divine partners, but he didn't. Why? Because immortal companionship offered no real stakes, no real intensity. Mortal lovers brought urgency, vulnerability, authentic emotion. Compare this to Krishna. While the Hindu deity used love as spiritual awakening, Zeus represents love as cosmic disruption. Both transgressed divine law, but for different reasons. Krishna descended to enlighten. Zeus descended to experience what divinity couldn't provide. The children of these unions, demigods, lived between worlds. Too powerful for human society, too vulnerable for divine realm. They became heroes not despite their mixed nature, but because of it. Their dual nature gave them unique perspective and power. What does this tell us? That sometimes the greatest strength comes from not fitting neatly into categories, from embracing complexity rather than choosing sides. Reflection word, intensity. How Christianity transformed divine human love into ultimate sacrifice. Let's shift to something that might seem completely different, but follows the same pattern: Christianity's central narrative. Here, divine love for humanity manifests not as romance or passion, but as incarnation and sacrifice. God becomes human. The Word becomes flesh. Jesus Christ represents the moment when divinity didn't just approach humanity, but became fully human. Consider the magnitude of this concept. The universe's creator, eternal and omnipotent, chose to be born as a vulnerable infant, live as a common carpenter, experience hunger, thirst, pain. Why? Love for humanity. But this isn't romantic love like Zeus and Europa. It's sacrificial love, culminating in crucifixion. This narrative carries its own transgression. In the Jewish tradition from which Christianity emerged, the idea of God becoming human was unthinkable, even blasphemous. Divine and human were absolutely separate categories. But Christianity shattered that barrier definitively. God didn't just love humans from afar, he became one. Compare this to Zeus. While the Greek god descended temporarily to satisfy desires, Christ descended permanently to save. While Zeus's children were demigods facing trials, Christ's followers are invited to become children of God through faith. The transgression here isn't sexual or passionate, it's existential. The very boundary between divine and human dissolves. But there's another layer in this story. In the Old Testament, we find enigmatic references to sons of God, who married daughters of men in Genesis. These beings produced the Nephilim, giants who walked the earth. Who were these sons of God? Fallen angels? Rebellious divine beings? Jewish and Christian traditions interpret this passage differently, but the theme is unmistakable: union between celestial and terrestrial, resulting in catastrophic consequences. The flood came shortly after. So even in Christianity, we find echoes of that ancient tension. What happens when divine and human mix? Transformation or destruction? Salvation or condemnation? The Christian answer is paradoxical. Through Christ, the mixture between divine and human becomes the very source of redemption. But before Christ, it was a source of judgment. This paradigm shift is revolutionary. Divine love is no longer something that destroys, it's something that saves, but only through total sacrifice. The price of bridging heaven and earth. Everything. If this journey is resonating with you, like and subscribe to keep exploring these mysteries hidden within sacred traditions. Reflection word: redemption. What all these traditions hide about your own divine nature. Here's where everything connects in a way that might disturb you in the best possible way. Greek mythology, Christianity, Hinduism, three completely different traditions, separated by geography, time, culture, yet all tell the same essential story. The divine cannot resist the human. Why? What exists in us, mere mortals, that awakens this kind of love in gods? The answer lies in something institutionalized religions have tried to suppress for centuries. We're not as separate from the divine as we've been taught. These stories aren't about gods descending, they're about humans remembering they were always divine. Zeus didn't fall for random mortals, he chose those manifesting extraordinary qualities. Krishna didn't love arbitrarily, he recognized souls ready for transcendence. Christ didn't die for abstractions, he died for individuals, each with infinite potential. Here's the truth that threatens religious structures. If divine and human can unite, if this union generates heroes, saints, and avatars, then each of us carries that potential. You don't need to wait for a god to descend to you. You can ascend to the divine. These stories aren't about waiting for external salvation, they're about awakening internal power. Notice the pattern. In all these traditions, union between divine and human generates something new. Heroes in Greece, salvation in Christianity, enlightenment in Hinduism. Love between heaven and earth isn't sterile, it's creative. It produces real transformation. But there's also the dark side. Hera persecuting Zeus's lovers, the flood after the Nephilim, wars in the Mahabharata. Mixing divine and human always provokes reaction from forces wanting to maintain separation. Why? Because when you discover you can become divine, you no longer need intermediaries. You don't need temples, priests, or institutions to access the sacred. These stories have always been dangerous. That's why they were reinterpreted, softened, transformed into simplistic morality tales. But the core remains. Gods fell in love with humans because they saw reflections of themselves. And we fall in love with the divine because we recognize our own origin. So next time you hear about gods and mortals, about avatars and incarnations, about love that crosses worlds, remember, this isn't just an ancient story. It's an invitation, a call for you to recognize the divinity that's always been within you. Divine love isn't something you receive. It's something you are. If these revelations made sense to you, leave your like, comment awakened, and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this truth. Together, we'll continue exploring the mysteries that transform lives. Important notice, this video is exclusively educational and comparative in nature. We present different religious and mythological perspectives with complete respect for all spiritual traditions, their beliefs, and their followers. We neither advocate for nor attack any religion. Our goal is to promote knowledge, reflection, and constructive interfaith dialogue. The interpretations presented are based on academic studies, sacred texts, and cultural traditions.